2 of 3. 2 of 3 is done. The last one is the judge. It's going to take 2 inputs. It's going to take the user's input and the computer's input, which we've conveniently distilled down to R, P, or S. And it's going to output who wins. D, E, F. And I'll call this who won. And this time I do have parameters. str user. I'm just going to call it that for short. I could say user guess if I want to, but nah, I'm lazy. Something to remember about the best programmers are the laziest programmers. That's a fact. Some of you just had a light bulb go on and say, maybe this is the perfect career for me. So 2 inputs. What are we going to do with those inputs? First thing we want to check is see if they're the same, because if they're the same, we know it's a tie. So I'm going to have this return either a T for a tie, a U for user, and a C for computer. And then I can use that in my program to decide who to add the score to. So if str user is equal to str computer, then print, I'm going to give some user feedback. It's a tie. So exciting. It's a tie. And then we will return a T. Now remember, anytime you're inside a function and it hits this word, that's it. It exits the function. It takes this, it sends it back. That function is done executing. Return is like a break statement inside a function. Okay, so now, if it's a tie, if they're the same, then it's a tie. If it's not the same, then that means I have to figure out who won. So this gets a little bit more complicated because now I have to figure out who said what and which one wins. So I'm inside that else statement. We know it's not a tie. I'm going to create another if. And this one's going to say if str user equals rock, elif str user equals paper, and else, which means str user equals scissors. Okay, now that's not actual code, but it's just a reminder to me of what else means, because it's going to be one of those 3. It's got to be an R, a P, or an S. We've made sure of that using our other functions. So now, if the user chooses rock and the computer didn't choose rock because it's not a tie, then the computer has to have either chosen paper or scissors. If str computer equals paper, then the computer wins, right? Or print, add paper on the brain, print computer wins. Computer wins, and return, we're going to return C for computer wins. Else, now we know that the computer has to have returned scissors here because it's not rock and it's not paper, so it's computer scissors. Just a little note to remind myself, print U won. And then we return P for player. Okay, so that is if the user chooses rock. Now we have everything accounted for. We know the computer didn't choose rock because it's not a tie. So the computer chooses paper, the computer wins. If the computer chooses scissors, then the user wins. Now we just have to repeat this little block here for the other two possibilities. Okay, so I'm going to leave everything else here. I'm just going to change this one thing. If the user chooses paper, what does the computer have to choose to beat the user? Scissors. You guys are good at rock, paper, scissors. I can tell. So if I change that to scissors, right, then I can change that to rock, and the logic fits. So the user chooses paper. We know the computer didn't choose paper, so the computer must have chosen either scissors or rock. If they choose scissors, the computer wins. If they choose rock, then the user wins. And now the last thing, okay? The user chooses scissors. So if the user chooses scissors, what does the computer have to choose to win? Rock. So we build that in there, and we know the user wins by choosing what? Paper. Or the computer would have to choose paper for the user to win, rather. Okay, so now there's the whole logic. Now, whatever happens, every possible combination of these two is now accounted for. I've controlled the input so that I know I'm going to get an RS, a rock paper RPS here, and an RPS here. I know this is a controlled environment now. The only variable is what the user input looks like, and I will not let them input anything that doesn't make sense. We've controlled for that. So here is a fascinating thing that we can now do. We have three really tightly done functions here. I can test them all with one line of code. You ready for this? Print who won and who won. So if I print the value of who won, whatever this returns is going to be printed here. But this function requires two parameters, right? Now, if it requires both of those arguments, guess where I get those arguments from? I'm going to get them from user guess and computer guess. Well, guess what I can do? I can put user guess in there as the first parameter and computer guess in as the second parameter. So I can play one whole round of rock, paper, scissors with one line of code. Because what I can do is I can pass this. When I run this, it's going to say, okay, we're going to print this. We're going to print the value of who won. Who won requires two parameters just to get started. So it's going to get the first parameter. The first parameter is user guess. So now it's going to jump into that function and do that whole function. Whatever they bring back gets put here. Then it's going to jump into this function, get the computer guess, put it here. Then it'll execute who won, which will return a value of T, U, or C, depending on who won. And it'll print that out. It'll also print out the messages in the who won function itself. All right, let's run this. Choose rock, paper, or scissors. P, U1, and then P. Wait a minute, did I put the wrong thing in the who won there? Return T, return C. Oh, it should be U, not user one. I was wondering about that. I think what I'm going to do is it'd be nice to know what the computer chose, right? Just so we know that the computer's not cheating us. Right inside this, I'm going to put what the computer chose because that's going to show up after the user puts in their input anyway. Print. Let's do this. You chose str user. Print. Computer chose str comp. There we go. Let's run this again. Rock, paper, scissors. I'll try rock this time. You chose R, computer chose P, computer wins, and then it returns C. So now all I have to do is figure out how to make this a game where it keeps track of the score, and the first person or the first entity to get 2 wins is the winner. And then the game ends and we ask if you want to play again. Now, if you've been paying attention and you've been working on the assignments, there's a lot of parallel with that part of the program and what we've already been using.